No, we went to the Mayday.
This is the Pueblo. It's a spy ship Pueblo. And I think it was 67 it was captured.
67.
67. 1968. So DPRK, since it liberated itself, since it went through the Korean War 50 to 53, has had constant sanctions around it, constant harassment around it. We've already heard that there are 30,000 troops in the south, 2,000 nuclear warheads pointed provocatively at North Korea, at China, at Russia, okay, all centered in the south. And as part of their provocation, they are in continual process of war exercises, war games, and a war game is very far from a simple maneuver. When you mobilize a full-scale army around the country, when you mobilize a navy and an air force in close juxtaposition of the territorial waters, airspace of another country, regardless of the politics involved, it's a situation which can very easily engender real war, and certainly means that you have to be fully prepared. And how can you tell the difference from sitting in the DPRK between a war game and a war? How do you know the difference between a plane which has intent to attack you and one which doesn't? Okay, well the answer is that you don't. And so they're very hostile maneuvers, deliberately set up by the US, not only to intimidate the people, but actually to cripple them economically. Because if you have to constantly say, well, in order to maintain our independence, we need an army-first policy, and they did quite rightly do that. Because we've seen what's happened to Iraq, and we've seen what's happened to Afghanistan, and we've seen what's happened to every country that's bullied and threatened, but stands up to imperialism that doesn't fully defend itself. They're attacked, and they're subject to real pain and massacres, and frankly, genocide. And North Korea, the South Korea, the whole of Korea has known genocide at the hands of the United States, so they quite rightly stick to their army-first policy. But what does it mean? It means that you have to spend a tremendous amount of resources in what's a small country, 23 million strong, on maintaining your independence, plain and simple. And all those resources that are maintaining your independence are then, not completely because they've been created in the way that they've used the army to build their economy, but they are nevertheless diverting resources from building the economy in the way they'd like to. And so that's their way, isn't it? Then they can point and say, well, look, and they don't tell the people history, so the people in Western Europe, and certainly people of my generation, they've forgotten the Korean War, they've forgotten the Vietnamese War. They don't know the history of this region any more than they know the history of their own country or the rest of the world. So they simply point and say, here's a country, it's a communist country, they've got a massive army, and look, all the people are starving. Now the people aren't starving, but they have known hard times. But it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you bully, intimidate, and you make people defend themselves and spend that much on their resource and their army, they cannot develop as quickly and as rapidly as the economic system of socialism would otherwise let them do so. And therefore, you're not actually looking at a pure socialism, you're looking at socialism which is having to defend itself by a larger state than would otherwise be necessary against aggressive imperialism. But they're portraying their aggression and their reaction to it as the essence of socialism. And there's the distortion. And so therefore they're able to, again, by little twists and spins, as well as their hostile pressure, portray a false image to us. The Pueblo in this context is important because, again, as part of their spy games, they continually spy. Okay, so they're gathering information, but they deny they do it. They invade the air force, invade the territorial waters in order to gather this information. And the Pueblo was a spy ship which was captured, led to a diplomatic incident which was highly publicised, very embarrassing for the US, where they had to finally admit, yes, we're doing these activities, yes, these activities are part of our existence, yes, even at peace, actually imperialism is always preparing for war. And therefore, it was considered a prize that Americans wanted it back. The DPRK quite rightly returned the crew, but kept it as a prize, if you like, as a symbol of their resistance, as a symbol of a living symbol to remind the Korean people, US imperialism, is aggressive, it has these machinations towards us, and we must be vigilant. And these messages are well understood. This is us walking around the Pueblo. This is us in front of Kim Il-sung Memorial Palace, which is where Kim Il-sung lies in state. It's very moving. So you can actually, there are several leaders who are worth visiting. Unfortunately, we missed Mao in Tiananmen Square, but we were very privileged to be able to see Comrade Kim Il-sung lying in state, and it was very moving. It was a bit of a solemn experience to take Alex for. We weren't sure that he wouldn't start grabbing things, so we sent him on a slightly different program, and he went to see the nurseries. And as I say, these nurseries are available 24/7. Okay, so any worker can put their child for a period, obviously they love their children, they want their children with them, but in order to live life there's good social care which actually liberates women. Not just in words but in deeds, because they're able to play a full part in the running in society. And as you can see, well, I think you can see, they're only a couple of pictures, but they're very happy. Okay, and they're beautiful facilities that they have there. And Sarah was constantly commenting on the amazing discipline. They're such lovely kids, and they're just absolute joy to be around. They say that DPRK is isolated, but if you go, they have a friendship museum. They have gifts from people all over the world, and they're given to the Workers' Party of Korea, to Kim Il-sung, but of course they're gifts really to the nation. They're treated as such, and they're on display for the whole nation. And the fact they have a zoo which is entirely populated by gifts from different leaders from around the world is a fantastic zoo. But this one is particularly good for me because it was given by Robert Mugabe, who is also one of our favourite anti-imperialist heroes, to the Korean people. And there is the white rhino. Fantastic. We went to Kim Il-sung University. That's us standing. A little portrait outside it, and we see their modern facilities, and all of their modern facilities are available for the people. You go to the university, they've got a beautiful Olympic swimming pool, they have professional coaches who are on hand if you want them, they have gyms next door. The people are healthy intellectually and physically, and it's just a joy to be there. Korea is famous for Arirang. Out of their struggle and out of their sense of unity have come an amazing ability to act together, and this is, I think, is embodied by Arirang, which is an art form which is a kind of, if you like, a communal social mass gymnastic display. So that, in fact, opposite isn't the other side of the audience, that's part of the display. So they're school kids from across Korea. They stand there with little plaques. I would love to have shown you some videos of this, but they're not ready to show yet. But it's absolutely amazing. It's an hour-long show, and in fact this show was the winner of this year's Arirang competition, and actually told pretty much the story of Korea, of its national liberation struggle, of its national liberation war, right down to, so this is when they, right down to the current policies and problems that are facing the people. So it's an art form which is very relevant to the social machinations, to real people's lives as they stand and the current needs of the Korean people. This is, now I don't read Korean, I'm not a real expert on Korean affairs, but these, I'm told, are the school kids marking out the names of the districts where they're from. Okay, so gradually you can see that by changing the little signposts that they have, they build up these massive pictures, a bit like a graphic display, how a VDU might work, but actual physical live display of very elaborate pictures and gymnastic displays. And you can see they rearrange themselves just beautifully. You get an idea of it, you know. You can't actually take in the individual detail and the tremendous picture that it presents at the same time. It's absolutely stunning. It's something that in itself is worth visiting the DPRK for. Now this is wonderful because Korea is a small country. It's a very mountainous country, and in fact 85% of the land is mountains, which leaves them with a relatively small amount of cultivable agrarian land, only about 1 million hectares to feed their 23 million people. So no one is starving, but with the degree of sanctions that are put upon them, self-sufficiency and self-reliance are very important to them. And they have campaigns for how to increase the production. They've got a current campaign which is to use the mountainous areas by having various kinds of livestock, etc. And they work this beautifully into their display by emphasising the current policies. So we should, rear goats, rear rabbits, rear pigs on these areas in order to maximise our food production so they have a better life. And it's a beautiful celebration of this one. And it ended with a very beautiful celebration of the international workers' movement, of a special relationship with China, and the demand for a unified Korea. Korea is one, something that's